The Galactic Collective's monitoring station Delta 7 erupted into chaos as alarms blared across every console. Senior Analyst Virtal's 6 appendages flew across the holographic displays, trying to make sense of the anomalous readings. Unknown, vessel approaching Proxima Centauri at velocity, exceeding established safety protocols. The station's AI announced with unsettling calm. Energy signature does not match any registered species. Virtal's chromatophores flashed warning colors across his translucent skin. Trajectory? Direct intercept course with Merlani homeworld. The gathered representatives of the collective species exchanged troubled glances. The Merlani crisis had drawn humanitarian missions from across the galaxy. Their once vibrant oceans were inexplicably evaporating, leaving the aquatic species struggling for survival. But this approaching vessel matched no known aid profile. Ambassador Teleth, the willowy representative of the Ashir Dominion, swept into the command center. "Show me." The main display illuminated with a vessel unlike any in the collective registry. Its hull was angular and dark, absorbing rather than reflecting light, a design philosophy counter to the collective's transparent aesthetics. Most disturbing were the unmistakable weapon ports dotting its surface, technology that violated at least 17 peace treaties. Scans indicate offensive capabilities exceeding those of our entire defensive fleet, the station's tactical officer reported, voice quavering. Power core signature suggests weapons-grade materials. Teleth's normally impassive face betrayed shock. Open diplomatic channels immediately. Prepare defensive protocols. Before the communications officer could comply, every screen in the command center flickered and changed. A figure appeared, bipedal, with dark skin and eyes that seemed to evaluate everything they saw with unsettling precision. "This is Captain Elena Reyes of the human system ship Harbinger," the alien announced in flawless collective standard. "We are approaching Merlani space with intent to dock and deploy assistance. Please acknowledge." Teleth stepped forward, composing herself. "Captain, this is Ambassador Teleth of the Galactic Collective. Your vessel appears to be heavily armed, which violates collective space protocols. The Merlani situation is an ecological crisis requiring humanitarian aid, not whatever your vessel represents." Captain Reyes's expression didn't change. "Ambassador, with respect, we've reviewed your ecological assessment data. Your conclusions are incorrect." A murmur of indignation spread through the command center. "We've brought what's needed," Reyes continued. "Request permission to establish orbit and begin operations." Teleth's voice hardened. "Captain, I must insist on a full inspection of your vessel before—" "Not possible," Reyes interrupted. "Time-sensitive mission parameters. We've transmitted our credentials and intent. The Harbinger will establish standard orbit in 17 minutes. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. "Arrogance," sputtered Counselor Zev of the Trill Hegemony. "They can't simply, they already are," Teleth said quietly, watching as the tactical display showed the human vessel accelerating. "Notify our security fleet." Beneath the churning waves of the Merlani homeworld, young scientist Dax swam through the corridors of the Collective's underwater research station. The latest readings were troubling. Water salinity changing at rates that defied natural processes, neural degradation spreading through the juvenile population. "Dax!" His supervisor, Dr. Calera, beckoned him urgently. "The surface station reports a non-collective vessel entering orbit." "Another aid ship?" Dax asked hopefully. "No. Something else. Armed. The occupants claim to be human." Dax's gills fluttered in surprise. "Humans? I thought they were still confined to their home system." "Apparently not." Kalara's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with anxiety. "They're requesting direct access to our deep water facilities. The Collective is attempting to block them, but—" A sudden communication ping interrupted her. Dax opened the channel to see an unfamiliar face, one of the humans. "This is Lieutenant Commander Jackson of the HSS Harbinger," the human said without preamble. "Are you Scientist Dax?" "I am," Dax replied cautiously. We need to speak immediately. Your people are not experiencing an ecological disaster. The human's eyes locked with his through the screen. You're under attack, and we've seen it before. The Kran. Orbital Station's diplomatic chamber had been designed to inspire awe. Transparent walls revealing the glittering stars beyond. Gravity calibrated precisely to comfortable standards for all known species. None of these accommodations seemed to impress Captain Reyes as she strode into the room flanked by 4 armed officers. Weapons are forbidden in diplomatic proceedings, Teleth said immediately, her tall form radiating disapproval. These aren't negotiations, Reyes replied, placing a sealed container on the central table. This is a briefing. The gathered collective representatives shifted uncomfortably. Representatives from 7 species had assembled, including the Merlani High Elder Toral, whose water-filled hovering environment suit hummed softly. Captain, Elder Toral began, his voice translated through speakers. We appreciate any assistance for our crisis, but your approach is concerning. Reyes activated the container, which projected schematics into the air. Not medical supplies or water purifiers, but orbital defense systems and military-grade mining equipment. What is the meaning of this? Demanded Zev, the Trill representative. The Merlani need humanitarian aid, not weapons. What they need is the ability to protect themselves, Reyes countered. She manipulated the display, highlighting planetary defense grids. Charity creates dependence. Self-defense creates civilization. Earth learned this lesson painfully. This is outrageous, Teleth interjected. You arrive uninvited, heavily armed, and now propose militarizing a peaceful species in crisis? The collective will not permit. The collective has failed the Merlani, Reyes interrupted, her voice steel. You've treated symptoms while ignoring causes. Our scans detected von Neumann machines in Merlani waters, self-replicating nanobots, consuming their world from within. Silence fell across the chamber. Impossible, whispered one of the science representatives. Our tests would have... Your tests were designed to detect organic contaminants, said Dr. Ling, the Harbinger's science officer, stepping forward with her own datapad. These machines camouflage as natural microorganisms. We've encountered them before. Elder Toral's environment suit bubbled with agitation. If this is true, why have you come armed rather than with scientific equipment? Reyes's expression hardened. Because these aren't natural phenomena. They're weapons deployed by the Vexari Empire from the Outer Rim. This isn't an ecological disaster. It's a prelude to invasion. Meanwhile, beneath the waves, Dax swam hurriedly through the restricted section of the research center, his heart pounding. The human, Lieutenant Commander Jackson, waited in the sealed communication chamber, as promised. Thank you for coming, Jackson said, his image flickering on the underwater screen. I had to bypass standard protocols. Your collective handlers monitor all official communications. You said we're under attack, Dax said, gills flaring with anxiety. Explain. Jackson transmitted a series of microscopic images. These are from your world's oceans. And these, another set appeared, are from Earth's Pacific Ocean 20 years ago. Dax's eyes widened as he compared them. Identical metallic microstructures disguised as organic matter. The symptoms match perfectly, Jackson continued. Water chemical imbalances, neurological deterioration in the young. We lost 3 coastal cities before we identified the threat. If this is true, why wouldn't the collective detect it? Dax asked. That's what we're trying to determine. Jackson leaned closer to the screen. Either incompetence or deliberate negligence. Your people aren't dying from environmental damage. They're being harvested. Harvested? For what purpose? Neural tissue. Jackson's face was grim. The nanobots don't just consume, they collect and transmit. Somewhere, someone is studying how your people think, how you process information, how your minds work. The physical deterioration is just a side effect. Dax felt cold despite the warm waters. Why would you help us? We're strangers to your species. Because, Jackson said quietly, no one helped us when it happened to Earth, and we promised never to stand by and watch it happen again. You have no proof of these allegations, Counselor Zev insisted, thin arms crossed in defiance. The diplomatic chamber had transformed into a battleground of words. Dr. Ling, the Harbinger's science officer, responded by activating a sealed, transparent cylinder she had brought into the chamber. Inside, a sample of Merlani water swirled innocuously. "Allow me to demonstrate," she said, injecting a catalyst into the cylinder. "This accelerates the reproductive cycle of the nanites by approximately 4,000%. All eyes focused on the cylinder as the water began to cloud. Within seconds, metallic particles became visible, multiplying exponentially before their eyes. "By the stars," whispered one of the collective scientists, moving closer. "These von Neumann machines are programmed to consume organic matter and convert it into more of themselves," Dr. Ling explained. "They're particularly attracted to neural tissue. The more complex, the better." Captain Reyes stepped forward, her face grim. "We've tracked 17 similar ecological disasters across this sector in the past century. Each followed the same pattern: water-based worlds, symptoms identical to what the Merlani are experiencing, eventually abandoned as uninhabitable." She activated a series of holographic images, desolate water worlds once teeming with life. "And in each case," she continued, "Vaxari salvage vessels appeared within months of abandonment." Elder Toral's environment suit bubbled furiously. "If this is true, why has the collective not detected it? We have the finest scientists in the galaxy." Teleth's expression remained carefully neutral. "These are serious allegations requiring verification by our own experts. While you verify, the Merlani die," Reyes said bluntly. She made a sharp gesture, and one of her officers transmitted data to the room's central system. "This is everything we know about the nanites and effective countermeasures. We're deploying defensive systems regardless of your approval." Teleth drew herself up tall. "That would violate collective sovereignty." "The Merlani requested our help," Reyes countered. "Or are they not sovereign over their own world?" Elder Toral's translator remained silent as the ancient Merlani watched the confrontation unfold. Deep beneath the surface, Dax swam frantically through the cylindrical corridors of his home city, Neremus. He had called an emergency meeting of the Scientific Council, bypassing the collective observers. "These readings cannot be accurate," Elder Scientist Morella said, her scales flashing patterns of disbelief as she examined Jackson's data. "I verified them myself," Dax insisted. "The human readings match our unexplained anomalies exactly." The council chamber fell silent as the implications settled over them. Morella's mate, Vexer, spoke first. "If the humans are correct, the how collective has either missed this threat entirely or known and done nothing," finished Dax. "Either possibility is disturbing." Vexer's bioluminescence pulsed with decision patterns. "We must prepare our people. If these nanites target neural tissue as the humans claim, our deepest trenches may provide temporary sanctuary." "There's more," Dax said, swimming closer. "I retrieved this from my laboratory." He projected microscopic images of his daughter's neural scan, taken the previous day. Tiny metallic structures were clearly visible, clustering around her neural pathways. Gasps echoed through the water as the scientists recognized the implications. "My daughter already shows early symptoms. Headaches, sensory confusion," Dax said, his voice tight with fear. "The infection is spreading faster than reported." Morella's colors shifted to determination patterns. "What do the humans propose?" "They've brought technology designed to combat these nanites, but deployment will require collective approval." "Which they'll never give if it involves weapons," Vexer said bitterly. Dax's gills flared with sudden decision. "Then we act without their approval. The human ship carries defense systems designed specifically for this threat. I propose we formally request their direct assistance, bypassing collective protocols entirely." "That would risk our standing in the collective," warned one of the younger scientists. "And waiting risks extinction," Dax countered. "My daughter has days, not months. Which would you choose?" The HSS Harbinger transformed before the astonished eyes of the collective observers. Its sleek, threatening silhouette began to shift, as massive fabrication arrays emerged from concealed bays. The warship wasn't merely a vessel of destruction, it was a mobile manufacturing platform. "Remarkable engineering," murmured Teleth despite herself, watching from the orbital station as the human vessel deployed the first of many orbital defense satellites. The collective council had spent 18 hours debating the humans' evidence, before grudgingly authorizing limited defensive preparations. Captain Reyes had waited exactly 7 minutes after receiving permission before launching full-scale operations. On the planet's surface, a temporary base had been established where human engineers worked alongside Merlani volunteers, adapting Earth technology to function underwater. The air buzzed with urgency and purpose. Dax swam alongside Lieutenant Commander Jackson as they inspected the modified sonic disruptors designed to target the nanites. "These will be effective to depths of 8,000 meters, Jackson explained. "Any deeper and the pressure would compromise the emitters. Our deepest cities are 12,000 meters down," Dax said, concern evident in his bioluminescent patterns. "That's why we're developing these," Jackson replied, pointing to a separate team working on pressure-resistant drones. "They'll carry disruption fields to the deep trenches." A shadow fell across them as Captain Reyes approached, her face tense with exhaustion. "Progress report, Commander." "First batch of disruption fields ready for deployment, Captain. Underwater variants still in testing." Reyes nodded sharply, then turned to Dax. "Your daughter's condition?" Dax's gills fluttered with surprise at her knowledge of his personal situation. "Stabilized, but not improving. The medical team is using your countermeasures to slow the nanite reproduction." "Not good enough," Reyes said flatly. She activated her communication device. "Dr. Ling, report to surface base with the neural buffer prototype." Later, as twilight settled over the temporary Camp, Reyes found Dax staring at the ocean. The Merlani scientist had insisted on staying above water to help coordinate efforts, using a specially designed water apparatus to keep his gills moist. "You should rest," Reyes said, approaching quietly. "As should you, Captain." "I've gone longer, without sleep." She sat beside him on the rocky shore. "Your people are quick learners, that's good. We'll need everyone in the fight ahead." Something in her tone made Dax turn to study her. "You speak from experience." Reyes was silent for a long moment, her gaze fixed on the darkening horizon. "I was 12 when they came to Earth. Coastal town called Rio Vista. Beautiful place." Her voice remained steady, but her hands clenched. 7,000 people. In 6 days, the water turned silver with nanites. In 14 days, the first neurological symptoms appeared. In 30 days, we evacuated. In 60 days, there was nothing left but metallic sand where a town once stood. "I'm sorry," Dax said quietly. "We fought back, developed countermeasures, saved most of the Pacific coast." She turned to him, eyes hard in the fading light. "But we had no warning, no allies, no knowledge of what we faced. You have all three." A sudden commotion from the camp interrupted them. One of the collective observers was arguing with a human security officer. "What now?" Reyes muttered, rising quickly. They rushed to the disturbance to find a collective technician being restrained after attempting to access the defense system controls. "Captain," reported the security officer. "He was attempting to transmit our defensive specifications off-planet." The collective observer, a minor diplomatic aide, stepped forward indignantly. "This is outrageous. We have authorization to monitor all activities." "Monitor, not sabotage," Reyes cut in, her voice cold. She addressed the technician directly. "Who are you sending our defense specs to?" The technician remained silent, mandibles clenched tight. "Scan him," Reyes ordered. A human medic ran a device over the technician, then looked up in shock. "Captain, his neural patterns, they're being influenced externally, some kind of low-frequency transmission." Dax felt ice spread through his veins as understanding dawned. "They already know we're preparing to fight back." Reyes nodded grimly. "And they've got agents within the collective." She turned to her officers. "Full alert. The Vaxari aren't coming soon, they're already here." The atmosphere shimmered with unnatural distortions as the first Vaxari vessel decloaked directly above the Merlani capital. Unlike the angular human ship, it was organic in appearance. A massive, bulbous structure resembling a jellyfish. Translucent, sections pulsing with sickly green light. Aboard the orbital station, alarm screamed as sensors detected 5 more vessels materializing in strategic positions around the planet. Collective vessels, stand down, came the transmission in a multitonal voice. This is Harvester Prime Korzeth. The Merlani world falls, under Vaxari protection now. Ambassador Teleth stared at the view screen, face ashen. This is a protected collective world. Where your protection has clearly failed, interrupted Korzeth. Our preliminary operations indicate dangerous contamination. We will sterilize and salvage as required by the ancient protocols. The small collective peacekeeping fleet held position, awaiting orders as Teleth struggled with the decision. Before she could respond, the HSS Harbinger accelerated from behind the moon, weapon systems fully active. Vaxari vessels, Captain. Reyes's voice cut through all channels. Your nanite attack constitutes an act of war against a sovereign species. Withdraw immediately or face consequences. Korzeth's voice registered something like amusement. The humans. We wondered when we might encounter your species directly. Your resistance on your own world was noteworthy. The Harbinger launched. The first salvo, not conventional weapons but specialized electromagnetic pulse generators that surrounded the nearest Vaxari vessel in a web of energy. The alien ship shuddered visibly. All collective vessels withdraw to safe distance, Reyes ordered. You lack the shielding to withstand what comes next. Teleth watched in disbelief as the collective commander obeyed without question, pulling their ships back just as the Harbinger activated its primary weapon system. A massive gravitational distortion that collapsed the Vaxari ship's shields like tissue paper. Beneath the waves, chaos erupted as the oceans began to boil with activated nanites, suddenly accelerating their consumption rate. Entire coral structures dissolved within seconds as silver clouds spread through the waters. Dax led the first Merlani defense team, equipped with human-designed sonic disruptors. Target the primary concentration points, he shouted through the aquatic communicator. Don't let them reach the nursery trenches. His team fired the disruptors, creating spheres of energy that caused the nanite clouds to dissolve into harmless particles. But for every cloud they neutralized, 3 more formed. Dax, Jackson's voice came through the communicator. The surface teams are being overwhelmed. The Vaxari deployed a new nanite variant, one specifically designed to target our disruption technology. A massive tremor shook the ocean floor, sending Dax and his team tumbling through the water currents. Above, the battle raged as the Harbinger engaged 3 Vaxari capital ships simultaneously, its weapons creating distortions visible even from beneath the waves. All teams, came Captain Reyes's strained voice through the emergency channel. The Vaxari are targeting the planetary core. Sensors indicate they're attempting to accelerate the nanite consumption rate by destabilizing the tectonic plates. Dax's blood ran cold. That would release enough energy to convert the entire ocean to nanites within hours, Jackson finished. They're not trying to harvest anymore, they're scorching the earth. A new voice broke through the communications, the multitonal sound of Harvester Prime Korzeth. Humans, you have interfered in Vaxari operations once too often. Your defense of the Merlani is noted but futile. As demonstration of our resolve, we have deployed a specialized nanite strain designed specifically for your species. On the Harbinger, alarms blared as environmental sensors detected microscopic infiltration. Reyes watched in horror as her crew began showing the first symptoms of nanite infection. Nosebleeds, disorientation, neural interference. All hands, she commanded, voice steady despite the blood trickling from her own nose. Initiate protocol, Omega. We've prepared for this, the Harbinger was built for this moment. The massive human vessel began to change configuration once again, its outer hull becoming incandescent as it prepared for what the crew quietly called the final solution. Dr. Ling staggered against the wall of the Harbinger's medical bay, fighting the effects of the human-targeted nanites. Blood trickled from her ears as she worked frantically at the analysis station, her movements becoming increasingly uncoordinated. The neural pathways are being mapped and transmitted, she reported, voice slurring. They're not just attacking us, they're studying how we think. Captain Reyes gripped the edge of the command console, refusing the medical officer's attempts to get her to the infirmary. Blood vessels had burst in both eyes, giving her gaze a demonic appearance. Status of Protocol Omega, she demanded. Core reconfiguration at 63%, reported the tactical officer, whose hands trembled visibly. Estimated completion, in 17 minutes. We don't have 17 minutes, Reyes muttered, watching as another of her crew collapsed. She opened a direct channel to the surface teams. Commander Jackson, report. Static hissed before Jackson's voice came through, strained but determined. Captain, the Merlani Deep Science team has discovered something. The nanites, they can be reprogrammed. In the underwater laboratory 12,000 meters below, Dax stared in disbelief at the results displayed on the neural scanner. His daughter floated in a transparent medical chamber, her small form connected to monitoring equipment. Unlike the other infected Merlani children, her condition had stabilized, then improved. It's unprecedented, said Morella, the elder scientist. Her neural patterns are actually altering the nanites' programming, rather than the reverse. Jackson leaned closer to the display, his breathing apparatus bubbling with each labored breath. The human-targeted nanites affected him even here, beneath kilometers of water. It's similar to what happened with a small percentage of human children, he said. Natural resistance, but this is more symbiotic. Dax touched the chamber where his daughter slept peacefully, the first restful sleep she'd had in days. Can we replicate it? Use it as a defense? Better, Jackson said, eyes lighting with renewed hope despite the blood vessels breaking in them. We can use it as a counterattack. A violent tremor shook the laboratory, sending equipment crashing to the floor. The planetary core was becoming increasingly unstable as the Vaxari attack continued. We need to transmit this data to the Harbinger immediately, Jackson said urgently. Dax's bioluminescence flashed with determination. Our communication buoys are down. I'll take it personally. On the orbital station, Ambassador Teleth watched, in horror as the collective fleet abandoned the system entirely, their commander citing existential threat conditions. 3 Vaxari harvesters now surrounded the Harbinger, which continued to fight despite visible damage to its hull. A small Merlani transport vessel streaked past the station, heading directly for the embattled human ship. Ambassador, came a transmission from the transport. This is Scientist Dax. We have discovered a countermeasure. The humans must receive this data. Dax, return to the surface immediately, Teleth ordered. The situation is that your collective has abandoned us, Dax interrupted. Again. The Merlani vessel accelerated toward the battle zone, evading debris and energy discharges. A direct hit from a Vaxari weapon sent it tumbling, but Dax managed to correct course and continue his desperate approach. Aboard the Harbinger, Reyes received the transmission request from the damaged Merlani vessel. Captain, came Dax's voice through the static. My daughter's neural patterns can reprogram the nanites. We can turn their weapon against them. Reyes straightened, ignoring the blood now flowing freely from her nose. Get that vessel into landing. Bay 3, she ordered. Then to her tactical officer, modify Protocol Omega, new target parameters. The massive human vessel began yet another transformation, this time exposing its core chamber, a sight never before witnessed by non-human eyes. At its center glowed a singularity containment field, the most advanced human technology ever created. Harvester, Prime, Reyes transmitted to the Vaxari command ship, her voice eerily calm. You wanted to study how humans think. Let me show you how humans fight when everything is at stake. The Harbinger's landing bay doors closed behind Dax's damaged vessel as explosions bloomed silently in the void outside. The Merlani scientist emerged to find the interior of the human ship transformed from the orderly military vessel he'd previously visited. Emergency lighting cast red shadows over corridors now lined with fallen crew members. Those still conscious worked with single-minded determination despite their deteriorating condition. This way, rasped a junior officer leading Dax through the chaos toward the command center. Captain's waiting. They passed the engine room where engineers worked feverishly around a pulsing crystalline structure that seemed to bend light itself. Human technology far beyond anything the collective had achieved. The command center was a scene of controlled desperation. Half the stations were unmanned, their operators having succumbed to the nanite infection. Captain Reyes stood at the central console, her uniform stained with blood from her nose, ears, and eyes. Yet her posture remained unbending, her voice steady as she issued commands. "Dax," she acknowledged, turning to face him. "Your daughter's neural patterns, show me." He transferred the data to their systems. Dr. Ling, barely conscious at her station, immediately began analysis. "It's remarkable," she murmured. The child's brain developed a symbiotic relationship with the nanites, repurposing them rather than fighting them. "Can we weaponize it?" Reyes asked bluntly. "Yes," Ling replied after a moment. "We can modify the core pulse to carry this neural pattern. Instead of destroying the nanites, we reprogram them," Reyes finished. She turned to Dax. "Your daughter may have saved 2 species today." A violent shudder ran through the ship as another Vaxari attack struck home. "Hull breach, decks 4 through 7, reported the tactical officer. "Singularity containment at 82%. Reyes's expression hardened. "Begin evacuation protocols for all non-essential personnel." "Captain," Dax said, realization dawning. "What exactly is Protocol Omega?" Reyes met his gaze directly. "The Harbinger carries a contained quantum singularity, what you might call a controlled black hole. Protocol Omega releases that containment in a precisely calculated manner. A ship-sized black hole would destroy everything in the system," Dax said, horrified. "Not with the right calibration," Dr. Ling interjected. "We can direct the gravitational wave to carry your daughter's neural pattern. It will reprogram rather than destroy, but only at the epicenter." Understanding crashed over Dax. "You're going to take the Harbinger into the planet's core." Reyes nodded once. "The ship was built for this contingency. We always knew there might come a time when the only way to defeat these nanites was from within." "The crew will evacuate," Reyes cut him off. "Except for those needed to pilot the ship to the core, myself included." On the orbital station, Ambassador Teleth received an unexpected transmission from the Harbinger. Evacuation pods would be launching, requiring immediate retrieval. "What are they planning?" she whispered, watching as the massive human vessel disengaged from battle and began a controlled descent toward the planet's surface. The answer came from an unexpected source. A direct communication from Harvester Prime Korzeth, his multitonal, voice edged with something new. "Concern. Collective Station, the human vessel is executing a forbidden protocol. They intend gravitational manipulation on a planetary scale. You must destroy them immediately, or this system is lost." Teleth's assistant turned to her in panic. "Ambassador, our remaining weapons cannot penetrate their hull. What do we do?" She watched as the Harbinger plunged into the Merlani oceans, pursued by frantic Vaxari vessels. For the first time in her long diplomatic career, Teleth found herself without words as she witnessed a species willingly sacrifice themselves for another. "We bear witness," she finally said, "and we remember." Deep beneath the waves, the Harbinger continued its descent, its heavily armored hull now reconfigured into a drill-like shape. In the command center, Captain Reyes sat alone, the remaining bridge crew having finally been ordered to evacuation pods. Blood flowed freely down her face as she guided the ship toward the planet's core, carrying with her the hopes of 2 worlds and the neural pattern of 1 small Merlani child. 3. Cycles later, the oceans of the Merlani homeworld glittered with unprecedented clarity. Where once there had been dying coral and dissolving structures, new formations grew, impossible beautiful architectures that merged biology with technology. The reprogrammed nanites had become builders rather than destroyers, repairing the damage they had caused and creating something entirely new. Dax stood on the shore of the new memorial, his daughter Tria beside him. At 12 cycles old, she showed no lasting effects from her nanite infection. Quite the opposite. Her neural capacity had expanded beyond any previously recorded in Merlani history, the symbiotic relationship with the reprogrammed nanites creating new pathways of thought and perception. "They're coming," she said, her bioluminescence pulsing with excitement patterns that rippled through the water around her. On the horizon, a vessel appeared, sleeker than the Harbinger had been, but unmistakably human in design. The HSS Reyes descended through the atmosphere with grace that belied its formidable capabilities. "The humans kept their promise," said Elder Toril, now Grand Leader of the Unified Merlani Council. "They said 3 cycles to the day." Ambassador Teleth, representing what remained of the fractured collective, shifted uncomfortably beside them. The Vaxari incident had exposed deep corruption within the collective's highest levels. Many species had withdrawn their membership, seeking direct alliances with Earth instead. "The collective welcomes continued cooperation with both Merlani and human representatives," she said formally. Dax did not acknowledge her words. His attention remained fixed on the landing vessel. Commander Jackson, now Captain Jackson, was the first to disembark. The neural scarring from the nanite attack was still visible on his face, but his eyes were clear and focused as he approached the welcoming party. "Captain," Dax greeted, extending his hand in the human fashion. "Counselor Dax," Jackson replied with a smile, clasping the offered hand. "It's good to see you in person again." More humans emerged from the ship, not military personnel, but families. Among them were children who approached the memorial with solemn curiosity. The massive structure rose from the ocean depths, the preserved hull of the Harbinger's command center mounted at its apex. Below, inscribed in both human and Merlani languages, were the names of the 87 crew members who had remained aboard to guide the ship to its destination. "They spoke of you," Tria said suddenly, looking at the memorial. "After." Jackson turned to her with surprise. "Who did?" "Captain Reyes. The others." When the containment field collapsed, their neural patterns were captured by the nanites along with mine. The young Merlani's eyes shimmered with an almost human expression. "They're still here in a way. Part of the new network." A hush fell over the assembly as the implications settled over them. In the deep trenches 12,000 meters below, the restructured core of the planet pulsed with organized energy. The reprogrammed nanites had stabilized the tectonic activity, creating a new type of consciousness. A planetary networked intelligence that incorporated elements of both Merlani and human neural patterns. "We've brought the treaty documents," Jackson said after a respectful moment. "Earth extends formal alliance to the Merlani, independent of collective oversight." Grand Leader Toril's translation device conveyed his satisfaction. "The terms are acceptable. We look forward to true partnership rather than patronage." Ambassador Teleth watched the proceedings with a diplomat's composure, but her eyes betrayed discomfort as the power dynamics of galactic politics shifted before her. "There's more," Jackson added, his expression growing serious. "Our long-range sensors have detected nanite signatures in the Procyon system, another aquatic world. The Vaxari apparently had multiple operations underway." Dax exchanged glances with Tria, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "Then we will go together," Dax said firmly. "Not with aid that creates dependence, but with dangerous ships that create freedom," Jackson finished, the human phrase now a solemn promise between allies. In orbit, the new human vessel adjusted its position, weapons systems dormant but visible, a reminder to the galaxy that humanity had arrived and they had chosen their path.